As the few of you who watch me know, I do food delivery as a side hustle right now, in addition to primary job. None of my other side things, such as writing my book or any of the social media stuff, provides a single dime of income to me at this point. But what if I told you that there are very stark differences between Uber Eats and Doordash? And some of these things you see on the customer end, rest you see on the driver end, but combined and you add it together, and it's a pretty stark picture of how two different companies have approached a very generic business in very different manners. So let me go through this with you here real quick. I'm going to start with some of the subtle customer differences, the ones that you will see, and actually the first one is something that both customers and drivers do see. So I'm going to start there, and that particular difference is tip adjustments. Uber allows them, DoorDash doesn't. And what that means is that you, as a customer on the Uber Eats application, can reduce a pre-tip after the order is delivered. DoorDash doesn't allow this. And how this affects things on the driver end, of course, is if a tip is reduced after the delivery is made, of course, then that is a reduction in how much they get paid. DoorDash, of course, because they don't allow this practice with the driver, what you see in the offer is what you're going to get. It's guaranteed. So this practice is sometimes called tip baiting, because some people out there or customers will enter a higher tip amount when placing the order in order to entice a driver to make their delivery. Now, I've only had the tip on the Uber app reduced a few times, and I live in an ex-urban Twin Cities market, which means that a lot of my trips here go long distances. We can go up to 20 miles in any direction from here, and that's basically just the beast out here. And we measure up, or at least the smart drivers do anyway, measure the orders based on mileage, which then you'll be able to calculate your expenses from. So that is one notable difference. Another difference on the driver's side is that DoorDash tends to give the orders to drivers as they arrive to the restaurants. So a driver will get an order at the same time that the order is placed, and then it'll hit the restaurant. All three hit at the same time, which results in longer wait times for drivers, but better food quality for the customers. Uber on the app, on the other hand, tries to kind of triangulate this to where an order will come to a driver with an estimated amount of time for the food to be ready. Now, what this results in is that on the driver's side, it's better for us, but sometimes the customers don't get their food as hot as they would like it, depending on driver delays and things of that nature, or if the restaurant actually finishes it before they're projected to. So that's one way to do that. The other difference, of course, and everybody knows this one, is that DoorDash is, by and large, a food delivery company. It is their bread and butter. It's how they make money. It's what they do. It's always been what they've primarily done. There are occasional shipments that can happen on DoorDash that are outside of the food realm, but I mean, looking at about 90% of the business, that's what it is. There's a small percentage of orders for grocery stores under a program called Shop and Deliver, where DoorDash will give a driver a specific debit card for this purpose to pay for orders at grocery stores after they shop for them, and they load them in the truck and they deliver them. Uber has the same program as well, but the thing with Uber is, Uber, of course, its primary business initially was as a taxi cab driving passengers. Uber Eats is a secondary business for them. So it is not where they put their heart and soul and efforts into. And of course, Uber also has other sorts of businesses in addition to Eats and passengers. They have package deliveries as well, which, coming from the driver's side, those pay very poorly, especially in relation to the amount of money and expenses that you spend on some of these trips. So that is another difference between the two. The most obvious difference between the two is how much market share that they respectively have in the food delivery business. DoorDash controls about 67% of the food delivery business in the United States. Uber controls about 23% of the delivery business in the United States, which leaves the remaining 10% for Grubhub. I've never delivered Grubhub because where I live they don't operate. I am simply too far out of the city. Grubhub will only do basically second-tier suburbs, and they won't go any further than that in the Minnesota market. And I'm sure it's probably very similar elsewhere. Market share, of course, is the biggest difference. In the town where I live in specifically, DoorDash controls about 90% of the market here, leaving only about 10% for Uber Eats, and of course Grubhub doesn't even participate out here at all. Which is kind of hilarious because I will go to Jersey Mike's here in town, for example, to do a pickup of an order, and it'll say, we deliver, and it'll show DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub. And I just went in there one day and just chuckled at them. I'm like, you're never going to get a Grubhub order. They don't operate here. They only operate in the second-tier suburb that is probably the closest to us. So in short, that is another major difference between the two platforms. How they send their orders, how they send their drivers, the tip baiting practice, and the market share, and the role that food delivery plays in each company. So if you ever look at both apps, and if you're ever ordering your food or ordering your dinner, and you think, these two aren't exactly the same, you'd be correct. They're not exactly the same. They're both very different, even though they both have the exact same function. You order food from a restaurant, and you get it delivered to your doorstep. Both apps are fairly specific as far as delivery drop-off procedures is concerned. DoorDash is more specific as far as pickup is concerned. You need to pick up an order at DoorDash. You have to take a picture of the food and a picture of your receipt. Uber doesn't require this, but both companies required a drop-off, which I find kind of interesting. And a lot of this, of course, is to discourage the practice of drivers eating customers' food, which is unfortunately a problem. Especially if drivers feel that they haven't been tipped enough and therefore not making the trip worth it financially with expenses considered. But my counter to that argument is, you're the idiot who accepted it. And I hear people all the time, on both platforms by the way, crying and complaining about, you have to keep your acceptance rate above a certain level in order to get their bonus programs, which to me are not worth the money that you spend in extra expenses to keep that acceptance rate up. You spend more than you get. On DoorDash you might get, a card with 5 cents off per gallon of fuel, which is just, that's peanuts. Uber, as part of their program, a free Costco membership, which again is peanuts because those cost, what, $60 for the entire year? You're going to blow a lot more than in vehicle expenses than $60 to get that membership. So those are some of the differences between the platforms. And they both have stark differences. Sorry, it's late night here, and I'm filming this live. I'm filming the same night. It is Wednesday night. Hope you enjoyed your hump day. And, things are fairly well here. But I will see you again later on, and I will have another episode for you tomorrow night. So peace out, homies.